It always begins the same way. A creak in the hallway. A shadow moving where no shadow should be. The sound of a door gently shutting when every door in the house is already closed. You tell yourself it's nothing. The wind, a neighbor, your imagination. But deep down, you know, something is wrong. What if the horror you fear isn't some distant legend or dark forest monster, but a stranger standing just a few feet from your bed, inside your home? Tonight, we explore 3 of the most disturbing true home intrusion horror stories. Tales that remind us the walls around us don't always keep the darkness out. Story 1. It was a chilly autumn night in Pennsylvania. The kind where the wind whispers through the trees and the silence feels heavier than usual. A young woman named Rachel lived alone in her small 2-story house. She loved the quiet, the freedom of her own space, but that quiet had started to turn strange. She had noticed little things at first. A half-empty soda can on the counter she didn't remember drinking. A blanket folded differently on the couch. And once, she came home to find her bathroom light on. She brushed it off of forgetfulness, but there was an uneasiness in her chest she couldn't shake. One night, as rain lashed against her windows, Rachel woke up to the sound of faint footsteps above her. At first, she thought it was a storm, branches scraping the roof. But then she heard it again, slow, deliberate steps pacing across her attic. She froze. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure whoever, or whatever, was up there could hear it. She reached for her phone, hands trembling, and dialed 911, whispering to the operator that someone was inside her attic. Minutes felt like hours before flashing lights finally painted her street in red and blue. The police broke open the attic door, and what they found was worse than Rachel could have imagined. A man had been living above her for weeks. He had a small sleeping bag, stolen food wrappers, even a diary where he wrote about watching her move around the house. He could see her through the vents. He wrote that he almost came down into her bedroom several times, but wanted to wait until the right night. The police pulled him out, but Rachel could never sleep in that house again. Every creak, every whisper of the wind felt like footsteps waiting to return. Story 2. In the outskirts of Ohio, a family of 4 moved into what seemed like the perfect rental home. It was spacious, had a wide backyard, and came at a price far too good to ignore. The only oddity was a basement. It had been sealed off by the landlord with heavy wooden boards nailed across the door. When asked, the landlord simply muttered, "Old foundation issues. Nothing you need down there." It was strange, but the family shrugged it off. At first, life in the house was normal. Kids laughing in the yard, dinners shared at the table, quiet nights filled with TV shows and homework. But then came the noises. At midnight, when the house was silent, the parents would hear scratching sounds beneath the floor. At first, it was faint, like a mouse or raccoon, but the scratching grew louder, more deliberate. Sometimes, it sounded like knuckles raking across wood. Other times, it was a dragging noise, slow and heavy, as though someone was pulling furniture across the basement floor. One night, the father, Mark, finally decided to investigate. He removed the boards from the basement door, despite his wife's protests. The smell hit him first, stale, sour, like rotting would mix with mold. With a flashlight trembling in his hand, he crept down the creaking stays. The beam cut across old stone walls, broken shelves, and piles of dust. Then he froze. In the farthest corner of the basement stood an old, rusted bed frame, and lying on it was a thin, pale man, his eyes wide open, staring at Mark without blinking. Mark's scream echoed through the basement as a figure slowly rose, bones cracking with each movement. Police later discovered that a homeless drifter had been living inside the basement for months. But there was something far worse in their report. The drifter had carved strange symbols into the walls. Alongside them were diary entries written in red ink, or perhaps blood, describing the family's routines. The boy plays outside at 4:30. The mother leaves groceries on the counter at 6. The father sleeps soundly by 11. Whoever, or whatever, he had been studying them like prey. The family fled the house that very night and never returned. Story 3. It was past midnight in a small rural town in Kentucky when Emily, a young college student, returned home alone after a late shift at work. Her parents were away visiting relatives, leaving her to watch over the house for the weekend. She locked the doors, double-checked the windows, and settled into bed with her headphones on. But at exactly 1:13 a.m., she heard it, a sharp knock on the bedroom window. At first, Emily thought she imagined it. The window was on the second floor, no tree branches nearby, no ladder, nothing. Just open space. Then, another knock. 3 deliberate taps, echoing through the silence of the night. She pulled off her headphones, heart racing, and whispered to herself that it was just the wind. Gathering her courage, she peeked through the blinds. What she saw made her blood run cold. A man's face, gaunt, pale, with eyes that reflected the moonlight unnaturally. He was pressed against the glass, his mouth stretching into a slow grin as if he had been waiting for her to notice him. Emily stumbled back, grabbing her phone to dial 911. But before she could press the call button, the knocking turned into scratching. Long, drawn-out claws against glass. And then silence. When the police arrived 20 minutes later, they found no man, no footprints in the dirt below the window, nothing at all. But on the glass, carved deep into the pane with something sharp, were the words, "Thanks for watching me too." Emily never stayed in that house again. Neighbors claimed the figure had been seen before, lurking around town, staring into windows. Some said it was a stalker who vanished years ago. Others whispered it was something inhuman, an entity that thrived on fear and isolation. Whatever it was, it had marked her, and it had let her know it wasn't done.